Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day, and we're at about show 251. And for the first time today, I found myself conscious that somebody's backstage listening to me, and that just made me smile. So today on the show, we've got a newcomer to Lansing, or relatively newcomer, and I'm really excited to hear the story about what had him choose Lansing and where he what path he took to get to where he's coming to. But before I talk about that, I just want to give a shout out to my t-shirt as usual, Capital City Film Festival. Can't wait for you guys to come back. I keep saying it. I hope it happens soon. And related to that, related to the arts, is our guest today, our new friend, Stephano. How are you doing today?
Hello, Jerry. I'm quite well. Thank you for having me.
You have such a positive energy. I mean, I'm so excited for the next 30 or 40 minutes here. Just your vibe, I can feel it through the screen. So,
likewise, thank you.
So I told you we'd BS a little bit in the beginning, and then I said something about those two circles behind you. Now I'm obsessed with them. I want to know what they are.
Beautiful. So these pieces right here. Oh, wow. Okay, it's mirrored.
The camera's mirrored, yeah.
So these two right here, we actually found from a local Lansing artist in one of our trips to the many art fairs. We were supporting the fabulous Sarah Sanders, the Ace of Spades from Opportunity Arts of the four aces. And we were supporting her, and then we took a walk around and we were looking at some other artists as well. And we came across this artist by the name of Carrie Cervantes. And she makes these out of clay and wood, and she shapes them, and they are remarkably affordable with motifs from many cultures in Europe in particular. So I got these two. So the silver and the gold are obviously the motifs for the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the light and the darkness, the push, the pull, the yin, the yang. The bee is actually a symbol paired with the laurels, and the crown is a European symbol for higher royalty-esque thinking and pure royalty, not corrupted royalty as most people tend to think about it in brief. And this piece right here with the fleur-de-lis in the silver and the gray with the cherub angel speaks to the subconscious, the divine feminine, and the things that guide us, our shadow sides. So when everyone comes in here, we're very big on those higher aspects of polarity sitting in their proper hierarchy.
Feminine on top, of course.
Oh, yeah. I suppose it depends on the day. Traditionally, what you would do is going towards the summertime, you'd have the sun aspect on top and the feminine aspect on the bottom. And then once you get into the autumn and winter months, you flip them.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So you hit on two of my tattoos, the yin and yang, and I can't remember which side the bee's on right now.
Oh, yeah, so, that second side.
So royalty, huh? I have
yes.
to remember that. So
funny story. The bees are actually there's a lot of poetry and mythos, and I'll tell you about that the more you get to know me as a student of the gods. One of the most beautiful things I've ever heard a bee called was the tears of Ra, the sun god from Egypt.
Oh yeah, I like that. So do you have a favorite deity or god symbol or anyone?
Interesting. So, I mean, I guess we're going around. So, since this is every damn day, and this is the raw show that I love, I will be very raw with you. So, I am a polytheist. I am, to some people would say, an omnist polytheist or a pagan polytheist, but I'm not simply that, because I also have elements of Judeo-Christianity and Zoroastrianism as well incorporated, but I am a Hellenico-Italian polytheist, but I work with the Norse, I work with the Celtic gods, I work with many different cultural backgrounds, and very deeply. We are not a dilettist practice, the Daimonikos aspect of my name that we're seeing here, and it's really... to have one exclusive favorite is really hard, because once we get to the realm of divinity, which is infinity, there's really no better. There's just different depending on what it is you want to do. I suppose if I was trying to rid my life of something that was plaguing me, I would go to Saturn. Whereas if I wanted to rise above and conquer as a king, I'd go to Zeus Jupiter. If I wanted daunting wisdom, which goeth into the night in the woods, I'd go to Odin. If I wanted bold understandings of love in all of its aspects. The Greeks had 7 words for love. I would go to Aphrodite Venus. If I wanted the dark sides of intelligence, of intelligence and crossroads aspects of femininity and well, witchcraft in general, I'd go to Hecate, trivia to the Romans because of the tri-crossroads. So I could go on and on about that, but yeah.
I thought I thought you might say that. So we used to have the Unity Spiritual Center that would operate out of the Fledge because they had a fire, and so they never were able to rebuild. So they operated out of here for about a year before they went, and they kind of had an all paths strategy. No matter what path you're on, you're going to the same place, whether you're Buddhist or Jewish or Christian or Muslim. How does is that something that plays into what you're talking about as a polytheist, or only because they have the same components in some ways that they're working with?
So yes, to answer your question, the former aspect of that sentence, yes, they are all very much incorporated. So I speak Greek, Latin, and Italian, mi laureanica, io parlo italiano, e lingue latine. And in our practices, we incorporate multiple languages. We try to be as true to the text as possible whenever we're referring to any specific religions or a specific spiritual background. I have areas of speciality as a high priest. I have other high priests and priestesses and people which I work with in the Daimonikos coven. And we have different areas of specialization, as I said, and in different cultures in particular. Some of them are because of blood-related backgrounds. Some of them are because of academia or sheer spiritual curiosity. What is not necessarily connected by blood can be connected by spirit at times. And I've seen white Haitian voodoo practitioners. I've seen African American Norse pagan practitioners. So it's a real push, but it's very interesting. So yes, we draw philosophies and tenets from everywhere, and we see where they come together. We challenge and we speak, and we're building a new culture, but not at the expense of the other cultures, with the wisdom of these cultures. If I can be brief about it.
Yeah, I love that. I usually do the intro to the show much quicker than this, and yesterday I did a little bit longer, and I came to the epiphany that, like, if I don't know if you drink or not, but you and I sat down at a bar, right? And we don't know each other, so we're both sitting there, and I turn over and just ask some random question because I do that all the time, and now this conversation starts. How would that really go, right? Is it a good transition to, hey, man, you're kind of different than most of the people in this bar and what you're talking about. Where are you from? So I think this might work for us. Where were you? Let's get into you. Where were you born and raised? And I want to hear all these words. I mean, your language is beautiful. But let's go into the show part and string more of this into what we talked about earlier. So sorry for taking us on a tangent, but so good.
No, it's fine.
So good. Tell us about you. Where were you born and raised? Where'd you go to school? What got you into opera, and what brought you to Lansing?
All right. So I was born and raised in a Long Island, New York town called Riverhead. So for those of you who know the map, so Long Island looks like a fish. And I'm right where the fishtail forks. We make a joke sometimes that we're right by the fish's butt. But it's a very interesting town, very diverse. I went to a very diverse grouping of schools, and I learned a lot of things from a lot of people. I learned multiple ways to communicate and speak English, and I was really I was really blessed to have met a lot of great people from a lot of different backgrounds of thought that helped me set the foundation for what it is I am. I was born on May 4th, so I have constant Star Wars references. Ironically, also a very mysterious day in a lot of different legends. So I always take at least a little bit of cultural pride in that. I was raised a lot by the influences of my mother's side of the family more than my father's side of the family. Unfortunately, there was a lot of dissonance growing up, but it made me the man I am today, and it made me also want to study psychoanalytics and socioanalytics, and so it's what makes people tick. We understand what makes people tick. We understand ourselves, and vice versa. So what got me into opera and singing in general goes back to when I was 2 years old. I was singing probably before I was speaking. It was kind of the old joke. I would sing because of mainly my grandfather on my mother's side, and my father. He would sing a lot of Barry Manilow tunes, and he liked more of the later mid pop stuff and old school rock and roll. My grandfather was more Italian opera because he was first generation American here, or he came over on the boat right when he was very young. But my middle name Pellegrino is actually his first name. May he rest in peace. And they saw my talent at a young age, and they really wanted to develop it. And I started taking voice lessons when I was around 13, 14. I did the local events and NISMA. I won my first competition at age 12. And there was a big attention to it. And I always sang because I love the music, and it moved me. I mean, there aren't too many 5-year-olds listening to Barry Manilow and listening to that. So I loved his German romanticism paired with jazz idiosyncrasies and 60s pop, made a very beautiful tone that got me into just about everything. I listened to him and Pavarotti, Luciano Pavarotti, the opera singer, growing up, and I loved how it made me feel. I love how it moved me. I love how I was able to tap into those things. And as I was able to articulate things more, I realized this was a way that I could be as much of a servant to the art, the people of this world, the environment, and the gods themselves. So it's about them for me, and what it does for me is just as beautiful, but arguably a hierarchical side effect in certain contexts. But just the power of it all. It was a nice medium, because music is mathematics. To quote Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, music is liquid architecture. Architecture is solid music, and it was a way to kind of understand the constant self-actualization that is existence constantly unfolding. Every color, every sound, every number, every symbol. And that unlocked all these aspects of spirituality in me that kind of shaped me into this artist that I am overall. That has a concentration in voice, but is a magic practitioner, shall we say, in many different backgrounds.
All right, so I have 3 questions that have already built up. I gotta pause for a second before you go on more. The first one is I play with numbers. So it's fun. As I was thinking of this question, you're talking about music and mathematics, and I wanted to ask you some question in this realm. I knew it would come up. And so I have a degree in mathematics. That's what I've done. I mean, I do it every day. I use math in some sophisticated way almost every single day. And I always play with numbers though too. So when you were talking about being born on May 4th and 5-4 and would be the numerical way of looking at that. Yes. And then you started talking about that. I started switching the numbers around to like the European format. And then I came up with 45, which then took me to Trump. So I don't know. So, but we said we're not going to go there because you don't want to talk about politics.
You can rest assured I'm not. My politics are very interesting, to say the very least. I'm not inherently for one polarizing side or the other. I would end up giving you an entire dissertation of where I agree with liberalism and conservatism, depending on the context. But
Yeah.
I guess that's just my medium of being an artist. I'm certainly not a centrist in the sense of not doing things politically, but I'm very involved politically, but very careful because it's a delicate process.
It's funny to me because I'm hearing, when I hear your words, you're using words that I've never heard anybody use before to talk about like systems thinking and outward thinking instead of analytical thinking. You're talking about the same exact stuff, but you're using music and art and language to describe it in a really beautiful way.
Thank you.
So,
that means a lot.
Have you ever heard the word? I just learned this word, sensatia, or something like. What is it?
A sensatia, you said? I'm asking.
Yeah. I think it's where you can see sounds and you can smell colors and things like that.
Synesthesia.
So, yeah, I knew you'd correct me or fix it for me.
Yes.
Can you spell too?
So let me see. So it's a Greek origin word because it has Y in it. So SYNCE. And I'm not certain if there's another S before the TH, but there's definitely a TH after that. So sines, S, and then TH, thesia, THESIA, I believe, off the top of my head.
That'll get me closer in the Google search anyways than the way I was spelling it, I'm sure. But can you see music? Can you see sound? Can you see?
Yes, very much so. And it's actually the basis of a lot of the work that I do, not just as a performer, but also as a writer of music and as a maker of art. So everything has a correspondence in existence, whether you realize it or not. And that is very mathematical in and of itself, but it's also very magical. I always say magic is the art of science and the science of art, but it is also much, much more than that in a lot of ways that transcend words. But yes, so a big thing that motivated me when I was younger, I had synesthesia and perfect pitch at a very young age. So the tones of things either lend themselves to seasons, times of day, shades and colors, shapes, etc., etc., and they all correspond and envelop. And I actually write poetry about this very often. I'm in the process of writing some orchestral music surrounding these things. You could see a lot of that in the genius of Gustav Holst. A lot of his music people studied, and that's actually where a lot of the Star Wars music comes from, was studying Gustav Holst, understanding the aspects of the orbs and everything moving around together and everything constantly unfolding around us. When I listen to music, I can sometimes actually space out. I will see times of day, I will see seasons, I will know if there are clouds or no clouds in the sky, what kind of plants are around me, what are the colors and contours, what is the raiment of the overall portrait that is in front of me as I'm looking outwards. Sometimes it's about people, sometimes it's about places, sometimes it's about animals, sometimes it's about combinations of all three in enveloping. And the more elaborate the music is, paired with the text and the subtext of such and how they blend together, I am able to paint a really crazy picture with you. And it's why I'm working with artists to kind of take that out of my head. I have a whole sub-brand that I call unofficially From the Mind of Stephano Andreotti, because of all the things I do, I'm not like physical artistry is still, I'm more the intangible. So I'm hoping to work with someone who can take that and we can really work to answer your question.
Well, thank you for that. And then the next thing, before we move on to like where you went to school or whatever that brought you to Lansing. So I work with a lot of people, and I have a hypothesis that says, people are doing this over here and they really want to do this. So they were born to do something, but they get knocked off tilt. They get, some masculine father that says, no son of mine's going to be an artist, or they get, little girl, you can't be a mathematician, or, you know, all these things that knock people off tilt. And sooner or later they get debt and they get all kinds of things that are obstacles to go back to how they want to be. And it seems to me, and if I'm wrong, I'm very sorry about this, but you said be bold, so I'm being bold. It would seem to me that it would be very hard to be a 12-year-old opera singer in a middle school somewhere in America without having a bunch of jackasses coming at you all the time. What kept you from getting thrown off tilt?
So, even in the dissonance that existed within my household, because my mother and father fought a lot, unfortunately, you know, and so there wasn't a lot of relief at home at times in tandem with school. I was matured at a very, very young age. And for that particular reason, I wasn't really into a lot of the same things that a lot of other of my peers at the time were. So what I usually did was I went through a period of escapism in video games, which are amazing because they are it's pretty much, it's modern cinema that you can control. So there's a different kind of investment. And I don't have time for them anymore with all the work that I do, but I still appreciate it. Best game thus far I played is The Witcher for anybody. But I would escape into my music. I would escape into playing those games. When I was younger, I always do a lot of child psychology with people. You can tell what kind of person someone is going to be by what kind of toys they played with when they were young. And I was unusual in the sense that I liked playing with figures and dolls more than I did cars and mechanics. Now I'm into both because they both theoretically are the same thing. But, you know, when you're young, you pick one thing and you space off. So I kind of loved the idea of relationships coming together, separating, and these aspects coming together, which further proved me as a musician. And there were moments of nastiness with people. There were times where I had to push back. Thankfully, in my school, there were a lot of fights. Thankfully, I didn't get into too many physical altercations with people. And most of the people that I did, looking back, it's just, oh, okay, these poor people were being very abused and unfortunately projecting onto everybody. I romanticized a lot at a young age. So I was that hopeless romantic on the stage wearing black, writing poetry. So there were a couple of cliches that I thankfully embellished over time. But it was a lot of video games, a lot of listening to as much music as possible, and a lot of stimulating my senses as much as I could. So if I could smell something, if I could eat something, if I could explore and see and imagine mastery. I always had and they're still to this day, they've gotten more refined, thankfully, that I want to be a master of as many things as possible. I want to be a master martial artist. I'm a jiu-jitsu martial artist, and I do Muay Thai, and I do Tai Chi and Qigong. I want to master understanding all artistry. I want to master understanding as many aspects of mathematics, science, and language as possible. The idea of the Renaissance man, I was always very inspired by Da Vinci in particular.
Yeah, I love Da Vinci. He's one of my favorite. Well, because he's such a great mathematician. So let's go back to your part of the story now, and thank you. I mean, you use systems theory. I really want to talk to you about a little bit more about maybe music theory and how to lay systems theory together with it. And I would love to talk to you about that. But if we do that on the show, we'll drop down to 0 listeners in 2 seconds, probably. Anytime I talk about something technical. So let's keep going. You're in high school, or you've graduated from high school. You're an opera singer. We sort of know how you got there. Then what happened? What'd you do after that?
So let me see. So after I got out of high school, I went to a school called Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey for a little bit. My grandfather was starting to get a little sickly, so I transferred to a more local school called Adelphi in Nassau County to work with my old voice teacher, Kelly Nassif. The two major voice teachers, well, I've had 3 major voice teachers in my time. There was Michael Kelly of Medford, who was a beautiful Irish tenor, and Eric Rieger at Princeton. I worked with him for a couple of years. He had a beautiful career in Germany. And the one who did the primary work with me was Kelly Nassif. I've worked with her for 10 years, and her and I got very close. She won the Met competition when I was 1. So we were actually training for the Met competition right before COVID happened. So I'm trying to make sure I can do that at least regionally before I turn 29 or 30, because that's the cutoff age. I'm 27 right now. And I started realizing in school for a while that I was a very autodidactical thinker. And there were certain aspects about school that were good for that. And there were certain aspects that weren't so good because I wanted to learn things my way. And, I needed to take my time. There are certain things I get faster, and there are certain things that I need to take more time on, both of which, if I give myself time, I can create something really good. I'm happy for the people that I've met. I'm certainly not happy for the amount of pricing that it takes to go to college to do these things. On one hand, you want to pay people what they're worth. At the same time, there's a lot of issues with that entire system right now. And I'm certain you've probably talked about that at least once before to somebody. So I started diving into all sorts of things. I realized I wasn't going to become a greater musician if I did simply music. I needed to understand what made music come together. I needed to understand where was music in everything and where was everything in music. So I started coming back to, because at age 15, I started studying the arcane arts, and I started studying what most people would colloquially call magic. When people hear the word occult, they tend to go, oh, that's bad. The word occult just comes from the word oculus, which is Latin, meaning the eye, to see. It's enlightenment in general. I wanted to understand why people were the way that they were, and understanding that also helps me as a performer, because then I can play on that in everything it is I'm doing. I can make eye contact at the right time. I can make sure my gestures are synonymous with my sound and my idea. So it helped me as a performer, as well as a person that was very much a mediator. I started studying anatomy, psychology, sociology. I always say, read college textbooks cover to cover, and you will understand. Like, there's a lot of things you will understand. It's there. You want to get teachers too, but at least if you can read something, that's fantastic. I used to not be good at reading. That was a lie I told myself. Did I repeat 50 times sometimes? Yeah, but reading is strengthening a muscle too. So how it all brought me here was, I had a lot of opportunities in New York, but it was, unfortunately, after COVID happened, things started drying up a little bit. And unfortunately, the opportunities were too few and far between. I've had the honor and privilege of competing in 2 world-renowned contests. First, Festival of Song USA, which sent me to Sicily. And then I toured through Italy, and I went through Denmark for a little bit. And I also won the Talent Inc. competition, which happened down in Florida. It happens in many places all over the world. And they have categories in competition, and they have workshops and classes, which are really nice. I had the privilege of meeting a wonderful woman by the name of Rachel Murray, who was a real fighter for me, and I really appreciate that. And I won the overall talent trophy, which was very nice. And so that was there were like 500 people there. And all their families. So that was a big day to compete in, and I'm very honored. So, I've been stacking my acclaim and doing as many contests as I possibly can. I try to perform in regional theater as often as possible. The thing that was exhaustive about New York, though, is that they're pretty much doing away with the open audition in general. And there's also this heavy emphasis on needing to be able to constantly dance as well as sing. And that's kind of counterintuitive to longevity technique in singing, at least from my perspective. Not that I don't love dancing. Dancing's a spiritual thing for me. But it's interesting, because I was just like, okay, well, you need an agent and a manager and people really gunning for you. You really need to understand aspects of business that college certainly doesn't teach you, and at least not in the concentration of music and performance career, at least not in my experience. And I met Mike Marriott on Long Island before he came out here, and came back here because he has relatives here. And I've been seeing this artistic renaissance. I've seen what Opportunity Arts builds. I've been paying attention to the Fledge. I really enjoy everyone's work. And I am seeing not only is there acceptance, but there isn't blind acceptance. It's acceptance in a way that that pays attention to nuance and detail and gives credit where credit is due. And people appreciate the arts here. People are hungry for it. And they're actually asking the questions, well, what made New York, Atlanta, LA, and all of these, and Chicago, what made them famous? What made them these hubs for art? We need to recreate that in this time. And I see that as an opportunity. I'm a man of opportunism. My favorite WWE wrestler outside of The Undertaker was Edge. So ultimate opportunist is definitely a phrase I like to say.
Hey, don't be mistaking our acceptance for kindness now. We're still hard and all that. Hey, how's it been coming to Lansing? It must be pretty kind and compassionate.
Very much so, certainly. I think there are too many people on top of each other in New York, and it's nobody's fault. It's told it's the land of opportunity, or people just kind of end up there, or you get stuck there because of the very rigid economic system. So there is a lot of struggle to be understood, and it varies depending on each person you experience. But I haven't had one road rage incident since being here, which is very nice. I get to save my voice. Everyone is very accommodating. They will walk you across an entire store to do something. No one in New York will do that. Like a solid zero will do that. And I'm not trying to defecate on where it is I've lived. It's just the culture is fast paced to the point where I think it's sociologically a bit unhealthy, and it's causing shall I say, from a scientific standpoint, a rapid oxidation of the mind and body that can only be met with violent opposition when in the face of something that seems to be in your way. Whereas here, no one's really in anybody's way. There's plenty of people here. There's plenty of opportunity. I can get anything here that I want. They have good pizza here. It's really not that bad. It's not New York pizza, but I also make my own style of New York pizza, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So, I see the Renaissance coming too. I don't pronounce it like you, sorry. I got this Michigan accent, I guess. But, I see the arts. I've always loved the arts in Lansing because of our diversity. And, diversity isn't a thing that just happens. You can't just say, zap, now we're going to be diverse. You have to invite and include and accept, the words that you were kind of using too. So one, I'm glad you've been invited here. I'm glad you've been welcomed here, and I'm glad you're feeling accepted. But now we got to get inclusive, right? Now we got to include you in things. And I think this Renaissance is spectacular. The other thing that's happening at the same time is we have the FRIB. Do you know what the free radon something? I don't know. It's one of the biggest particle colliders in the world. And we're going to have the highest density of PhD physicists in the world right here in the greater Lansing area. They built it out at MSU. Did you know that was happening as well?
I didn't know the extent of such. I know Mike Marriott had briefly told me about the particle collider, which I found fascinating because I'm also a student of physics, because understanding physics is how I make the best product. And also understanding physics is just how you're going to understand nature, and how nature is metaphysical as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I got to do that.
Yeah, and so I'm really thinking, and now I want to talk to you about the Dancing Woolly Masters and all this stuff and how that's fit into. Do you know this book?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Because that book is a life changer for me. It was one of the books when I really was digging into quantum physics. And anyways, but this renaissance of science and this renaissance of art coming together seems like the huge collision that needs to happen to really make this boom. And I feel super confident that Lansing is the place to be. I mean, super confident. And then we're supposed to be the stewards of, 40% of the world's fresh water here, and we're horrible at it. So we got to fix that too. But I see Lansing being a very significant city in the very near future. So
I completely agree.
So glad you're here. Now let's talk about the inclusion part. What is your project? What are you doing? Tell us some stuff how we can support you, how we can see you, how we can do whatever.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you again for the opportunity to be as open about this as possible. I really appreciate it because some places, aren't, they get a little when they hear some of these things all at once. So I will be as
Well,
brief as I can because there's so much.
let me
Oh,
show
go
you
ahead.
some feedback. This has definitely been, or might be, one of the most interesting and entertaining episodes of Every Damn Day. So
Oh,
we're getting
wonderful!
that in
Thank you,
comments right
Jeremy.
now. So
Oh,
I interrupted you, but please.
thank you. So in brief, I will be having a lot of concerts that are currently being scheduled by my dear publicist manager, Mike Marriott of Opportunity Arts. He is helping me schedule in a lot of things that some will be orchestral, some will be just myself and piano, some will be myself and instrumental tracks, depending on the venue, depending on, who is still comfortable with everything going on. I know that the CDC is slowly helping everyone transition, which is very good. But at the end of the day, everyone still has to be comfortable. We're trying to innovate some performance as well. That's a little secret. We'll definitely get people to want to come more to us about. We are planning some huge concerts for the holiday season. Ironically, always people say it's just like end up singing Christmas music in July a lot because you really have to start preparing that very fast. We are going to be doing a lot more vending events with live music as well. So at the other name on here, Daimonikos, which is my business, Daimonikos Productions, which if you go to daimonikousproductions.com, you can see the extent of everything it is we do. I am not just a performer, but I am also an instructor in the arcane arts. I teach the 7 classical liberal arts of the trivium and the quadrivium. I teach many aspects of classes surrounding culture and cultural history. I teach aspects of magic and ceremonial priesthood in a wide variety of spiritual backgrounds. I teach the symbologies of mathematics and science, the classical elements of the West, the Ayurvedic elements, the 5 elements of the East, traditional Chinese and traditional Asian medicine, traditional Eastern medicine. I do Reiki and reflexology. I do holistic healing of all sorts of backgrounds, and I combine very particular modalities. I also am a creator of my own language and alphabet. Not to go crazy, Tolkien, even though Tolkien was amazing, Tolkien was channeling some major things, the man was a genius. I mean that in the most endearing way, where people are like, oh, we got another Tolkien on our hands. But, or whoever invented Esperanto. So I created 84 phonetic symbols, some of which have lowercase, so there are roughly around 150 symbols, and they combine the aspects of synthetic language, which is language we speak in the West, synthetic language being, okay, you have a straight alphabet, and that's every time you see this symbol, you create words with it, whereas there are pictorial languages of the East, which are characters and symbologia in a sense that, you combine these ideas together, and that's stemmed off of Chinese, Mandarin, and an ancient Chinese. So I have influences from the aspects that influence the original languages. So the original languages, the oldest languages like Tamil and Sanskrit, they're roughly around the same year. Some people will say Sanskrit is older. Sanskrit, which led to Hindi and Punjab and many other smaller languages. There are smaller in spoken, not smaller in system, of course, or brilliance. I work with the Phoenician aspects, the Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, Norse, Latin, certain aspects of the early Middle English alphabet, and the pictorial aspects of the East, primarily from Chinese and Japanese, little tail bits of Korean, but no other Asian language thus far, and obviously standard modern English as well. So original languages were set to number, and each sound is connected with number, and that goes back to the symbology of, okay, there's number, there's color, there's elements, there is texture, there is idea, there is shape, there is dimension, and that goes back to the synesthesia question. So I teach all things surrounding that as well. I have an entire, my whole thing is an entire art project as well as a cultural project as well. I had to, you got to go through the whole, we've done our due diligence. You have to copyright and trademark and do all of these things to really protect yourself. I'm trying to make my own poetry and music with that. We have live events. We have individual events. People come to us. We celebrate all sorts of holidays, and we try to make. I cook, so I make authentic cuisine, and we have a little ritual. We have an idea that we're supposed to focus on for the day. We have events called colloquium and symposium. Colloquium, essentially, you come to you can either perform in front of a wide group of peers, because we still have connection to New York, and we'll Zoom and from all over the country. We have a podcast called Spellcast, the podcast where we talk about bridging the mundane with the arcane. And I'm known by my craft name or my other stage name there, so you'll hear that. We host, as I said, certain vending events, certain trading events that are customary. We reenact a lot of the original Roman forums. One of the most recent ones that passed was Mercurialia, which celebrates Mercury, who's a god of commerce and many other things. We try to bring in as many experts as possible. In colloquium, which happens at least once a month, outside of the talent portion, like if you want to sing or recite something, you could also do a small lecture. If you want to speak about something, it can be opinionated, or it can be like a logical college talk, like a Parisian salon, paired with a monastery gathering. But you can also recite poetry. You can just talk. You can show. You can like literally do a dissertation on mathematics. Doesn't matter. We want to come together and really enrich ourselves. And in symposium is kind of like a monk debate, where we have a topic, usually polarizing, and we all agree that we're trying to come to a consensus. We're not trying to hurt anyone. We're really trying to get people to have actual discourse again. And we do okay, I do 5 minutes, you do 5 minutes. It's all the people. We do 5 minutes. That's the first round to make our thesis. Then we do another 3 minutes, then another 3 minutes, and we debate and we come back and forth. And then when everyone ends, everyone shakes hands. And if you drink, you have a drink, because the word sympotes means, literally it's a very layered word. It's a Greco-Latin word, meaning the place in which you drink with people, because the spirits bring us together, to bring back you to your bar comment. So that's the long and short of what I do. Can
you drink during the discussion?
Of course.
Oh, I don't know. I'd be able to follow the rules then. Because I'd be like, no, you. So, Sarah Wallace, also an opera singer in Lansing. You're here now. Mm-hmm. I've got this big old space. I've got this choir balcony up there. I've got the stage here. I've always wanted to have a rap battle. Can we have an opera battle? How would that work? Can we have a crowd and some DJs and a drop in the mic? And
I think that's something that certainly can happen and would certainly be a very unique thing to Lansing. So I'm certainly down to do it. We'd have to do it. The first thing that comes to mind is kind of like when you ever see the three tenors, Pavarotti, Carreras, and Domingo? In '94, they would do this thing when they were traveling, where they'd all sing like O Sole Mio and Nessun Dorma and stuff like that. And they would keep repeating the same verses and try to keep constantly outdoing each other. They always like to make fun of Pavarotti because, he was a little, and he would really do that. So we could certainly make that happen.
So all of these things that you just listed off, are all of them on the website, the Daimonikosproductions.com?
Yes.
If someone wanted to get involved or watch or whatever?
Yes. Yes, if you want to get involved, watch, connect in any particular way, we have most of the things on the website. We are also a vendor of handmade clothing and handmade furniture. My friend will one day learn how to build a house, but we do a lot of that. Our high craftsman makes a lot of our ceremonial clothing and some casual clothing as well. We make things old school and new school as well, from influences all over the world. We can make anything from a standard linen shirt to, if you want a toga, you want a kilt, you want specific jackets, even if you want small level armor and like leather and pauldrons and such. If you want to really fantasy it up or culture it up, depending on your way of thinking, you can do that. A lot of my classes are available. Certain classes are available upon request. I teach either privately or in group. The prices vary for that particular reason, because as a singer, I have to watch how much I'm talking, so I need to invest in certain areas. And you can also go on my website, StephanoAndreotti.com. That is currently in the process of being updated a little bit for everything that's currently happening. But if you want to know more about me simply as a singer, I separated myself as a singer from everything else that I'm doing as well, because Daimonikos Productions, though, is a giant brainchild of mine and my collective peers that are involved. That's also a thing where we all come together as well. And we have teachers that are also not necessarily directly involved with us as the LLC, but are also freelancers and come together. So if you want to teach anything in particular that's artistic related and it's not necessarily offered, or if you want to offer things through the site, we have a very particular hub in which basically, if you put things on Etsy, you can put things on our site too, as long as they fit some sort of artistic background. We're trying to really stand out that way.
All right. Thank you. So I put both of those websites in the comments, so hopefully people will pick up on those. And we'll be doing some promotion throughout the next, well, forever probably. But we'll look for
speaking
your
of
stuff.
promotion, we have the Power of Mid-Michigan Arts premiering in prime time tonight at about at 7 o'clock, I believe, on WLAJ. So my ABC, where you will get to see me sing, and as well as Sarah Wallace, as well as a variety of other musical artists and visual artists and poets as well.
You said it's at 7?
Yes. You know what? Let me double check that, because I've heard it a million times in my head, and I'm just trying to make sure.
Is it WLAJ?
Let me see. You know what? I'm going to go to Mike's message bar right now.
I was just looking at it too, and now I've got it all screwed up. Yes, 7 p.m. Mike's listening. And
Beautiful. Thanks, Mike.
What channel, Mike? I guess we shouldn't wait for him, but we can make space for others and be patient, right?
Yes, I believe so. I think it was channel 53.
Yeah, it is. He put it up.
All right.
WLAGA, ABC, 53. All right. And I'm typing bad today. So, all right. What's your mission?
My mission. So, again, I'll try to be as brief as possible to not be too much of a bag of wind.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
I like that.
Says Polonius.
So my mission is to, it's in a lot of places. It all kind of comes together into one. So I'll try to be as, I suppose, straightforward about this as possible. I am trying to, I'll tell you, for myself and for the world, because I try to make that as in tandem as possible. There is no community without the individual, and there is no individual without the community in certain aspects. You know, that's the yin yang in that. And we all would do well to understand that in ourselves and with each other. So my mission is to become one of the greatest artists that ever existed, in the sense of combining as many modalities as possible in a way not dilutistic, but as in-depth as possible. A pillar building a new house on top of the great minds of the ancients, of the Renaissance, of the recent Americas, and in now this modern time. I want to become a master of many things. Some people say you cannot truly be a master if you are a jack of all trades. To this I say, I'm going to prove you wrong. And I am going to do as many things as possible. My mission is to reconnect the arts and sciences again as they once were in the greatest ages of thinking. Because of our modern schooling system, unfortunately, and this is not to bash the schooling system, everyone's working as hard as possible. It's just a consequence of discourse and sacrificing certain things as so-called practicality versus understanding why these things have to be there as a whole. So I want to really connect the subjects again. I want to really bring together everything to show that everything exists within everything, that there is not, oh, you're either an athlete or an artist, you're either a this or a that, you're either, these things do come together. And that's why I did pro wrestling, wrestled for FTW. Shout out to Jack Gallo, Joe Ocasio, he taught me, Lenny Tatora, Tom Juba, and Brian Idol as he goes by.
If we don't have a rap battle, we do set up a pro wrestling ring in here about once a month and have pro wrestling. So once we get back rolling, I think we're a few months away, but you can come to a pro wrestling thing. We sit up there and watch it.
Oh, wow. So, all right. Fair enough.
Big Papa Pump, you like him?
Oh, yeah. I love Scott Steiner. He's funny.
He was my roommate in college.
Really?
Yeah, well, that's a different story.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. I love me Big Papa Pump. I had his action figure when I was a kid.
Yeah, we'll talk about that some other day. So mission.
Yes. My
for
mission,
you, the other.
Yeah. My mission is to really connect where things have been separated for far too long, to really create new innovation. All things magic and mundane, all things science and art, all things that are perceived as separate and together. I'm trying to innovate the sciences, mathematics, music, performance, sports, martial arts, just about everything. And in doing so, that is creating culture. Daimonikos Productions is about, we are Daimonikos culture. My Coven family we are a culture. We are a particular group of people. We are not trying to absolve anyone else's culture, at the expense of ours. We're just trying to make our own culture. Anyone who wants to be a part of it and work with it is more than welcome to come. And we want to make allies. We want to make friends. We want to know where people want to be with us, and where people want to be differentiated from us. That's a good thing. That's how you have discourse. You have to have opposing arguments in order for society to function. That's nature, So I'm trying to create a very particular culture. I am also my big long-term project, and all the money I'm trying to amass to do this, either by donation or by the very mass amounts of money I can make as a singer, if promoted correctly, and if to travel the world as a lot of the great performers do. I want to invest in a sacredly geometric, perfect sanctuary building where all spiritualities and all group minds of people can come together. The big thing that most people don't know is that perfect sacred geometrics raise ring tone. They raise frequency, and that's why people are more subconsciously guided to be changed in a sanctuary and to be more compelled for peace and reason rather than mindless violence. So I'm trying to do that, and I'm trying to really reinvigorate culture, architecture, art really in general. I'm trying to lead, and I'm trying to find other leaders and amass as many great thinkers as possible. And I am trying to really help people find whatever it is they're healing and whatever their eudaimonia and apotheosis is. Eudaimonia is a big concept that is present in the surname Daimonikos, which is what came to us in meditation. So that's the long and short of what it is I'm trying to do. But I'm trying to live many lifetimes in one. I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I'd rather drop dead with regrets than curiosity. And for that reason, I will be as opportunistic, as morally opportunistic as possible. And I will be surrendering to spontaneous honesty as I possibly can, however sweet or savory or pointed as that might be.
Nice. What do you do every damn day to push that mission forward?
Mainly everyday practice. I'm either singing or referring to some sort of art and putting it in the grand scheme of things as often as possible. I at least try to set aside at least 1 hour a day, depending on how much work I have to do, whether it's just maintenance work or maintenance on myself or taking care of the house or standard work that I have to use to bring in standard money to maintain. There's an old saying, good artists copy, great ones steal. Steal in a good way, where, I take that idea and I blend and I sculpt myself with it. So every damn day, I sit down and I go into meditation of some sort, and I will attempt to channel and open myself up to the articulators. For those of you who aren't necessarily spiritual, whose way of understanding life is a bit more atheistic or agnostic, I'm basically trying to put myself into a state of consciousness where I can get a particular amount of momentum rolling, and I write down my thoughts, and then I go into a particular genre, and then I connect those genres together. I will write constantly. I'm not afraid of making mistakes. I will observe symbols. I'll see what they do to myself, and I'll do constant psychological aspects of myself. I'm able to tap into my emotions very easily because I will listen to things and do things and put art and ideas in front of myself that will cause emotional reaction. I'll basically screw with my emotions every single day in a way that's cathartic. I will make myself cry and experience happiness, anger, courage, this, that, the other thing. And I will try to attack my own weaknesses and atone for them and move forward. And that's as humanistic as it is spiritual and religious. And that's why we can come together. I mean, and the early names of sociology understood that. You have your Auguste Comte and you have your Adorno's understanding stuff like that. So regardless of politics. So that is what I do every damn day in brief. If anyone ever wants to see it, you're more than welcome to come by, have a drink.
Well, I think we got a lot to talk about, you and I, so I might take you up on that one of these times. We daisy chain the shows together. And yesterday on the show, I had an artist, Alexandra, who's working on the Shiawassee Street mosaic project where you and I can build a tile. I'm going to build a tile. I'm going to invite you to one of the events we're going to have for building tiles.
I would love to.
And then she's building a piece on the Shiawassee Street Bridge by our beach there. Her question to you is, what are you most proud of so far?
So, as a very spiritual man, as a man of the gods and the high spirits, I always try to be careful with the word proud and pride. Some people, which is why in the language I have developed and developing, I have a word for pride that is good versus pride that is bad. Mm-hmm. So I understand that her question was from a place of good pride, things worthy of praise and being proud of. So it's hard to choose because there are so many things that I'm very grateful for to have had the opportunity to do. And I am very proud of how the gods and how the divinity and my ancestors have changed me from, you just ask, I started out just Catholic, and I asked to know. I took the word Christ, Christos, means anointed one. It doesn't simply necessarily mean Messiah. It's a very layered word. And I take, the whole idea of Christianity is to be as Christ-like as possible. And I asked, what does that mean? I want to know how he felt. I want to know what he thought. I want to know how he experienced that. And shortly after that, that's when all the other gods really came to me. And they changed, they made me articulate. They made me aware of myself. They slowed me down and grounded me. They took away my pain, and they took away things that were being caused because of that. So I guess the biggest thing that I'm proud of is how it is them, and when I decided to take up and serve them the way that I did, and how I've been able to serve everyone I care about, and also people who I don't even know in the environment, how I've been able to serve them better. So I guess one of the biggest things I'm proud of is when I decided to really take that moment and set the negative pride aside so that it could be about that. I hope everyone listens to me esoterically. I'm trying to, because now you see the emotion coming out of me. So.
Well, I think that you're exactly right about that word pride and all of that. And I think that everyone took that in the right vein there too. And thank you for, I'm calling 2021 the year of vulnerability, if you will. I'm not sure you're feeling vulnerable, but it might look like it to some of us right now. And thank you for spending using this energy this way. So I'm proud to have you on here, to be honest. I've been working with the word pride for a while. Thinking about it a lot. There's a guy, Dr. Deming, said that the original definition of the word quality might have been the pride of the master craftsman. And I really want us to get back to that. I want us to be proud of who we are and what we do, not proud of, I got 67 accolades and 30 trophies and 4 medals and I'm better than you. You know, not the BS one. I'd like to get a different, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please.
It's the difference between materialism versus virtue being represented in equipment. That's Aristotle, and Aristotle's book of politics was virtue must have its expression and therefore its equipment. The trophy is not the prize, it's what the trophy represents. It's the milestone, it's the rite of passage, the pillar that we continuously build our sanctuary, which is us and our group identity, our true tribe, right? So our culture.
So I love your passion. I love your answer. I love the emotion. Thank you.
Thank you.
So tomorrow on the show, I have our good friend Travis Stillwater, and his show is called High Life, Low Life. So we'll be back to fart jokes tomorrow, everybody. Don't worry about that. What question would you like to ask Travis?
So, as an artist, I am very centered around subtext, the subconscious. What is implicit in the explicit? Implicit being what is implied or what is subconsciously there, not directly said or directly done. Explicit being the opposite of that. So my question for you, dear friend, is what is the subtext of what you would like people to get out of your work, your passion, the things, why you do the things that you do? What is the subtext of, and how you subconsciously want to affect them? What do you want to be understood implicitly? What is the subtext of what you do? So
yeah, I like it. And I think it's a spectacular question from him because he is brilliant and he's definitely got some subtext there for sure. What about you? How would you answer that question?
I like what you did there. Turn the crossroads on the crossroads person. What I would love people to know is that light and darkness are one and the same. They're in the concept of yin-yang in the East, but also in the motif of the battle between the angels and the demons, or certain spirits of light and darkness. So what I want people to understand is that there is positive darkness and there is negative light. There is positive light, there is negative darkness. Know the difference. Understand that we are all creatures where these things come together constantly. It's the beauty of our existence. I want people to understand that everything I'm doing is thought about. Every word I'm choosing, every tone I choose to make it, every syllable. Even I'm doing it right now as an example. So I want, if you want purpose, you know, that is what it is I'm basically trying to do. I'm here to invigorate those who want to illuminate themselves so they can find their purpose. And I want to give rest to people. Come to me and I shall give you rest. I take that sacred piece of information very seriously. So I want people to understand the rest within chaos and the movement within peace, because they've seen too much of the respective. Now it's time to cross the beams. Now it's time to be as Kundalini in the Catechus. Now is time to understand the double helix. I want people to understand esotericism again. Rudolf Steiner was very astute in the sense that he was very concerned in the dawning of the 20th century that people would start to, in this day and age, not see the great subtext of existence anymore, the subconscious, the intangible tangible, so to speak. I want people to listen to me and see that that's always there. And I want people to find that within themselves and find that connection. That's the Riddler. That's the man at the crossroads. Some people have called me a devil. Some people have called me just a gatekeeper. Some people called me a lot of things. Joking, rooted in seriousness. If you ever want to know more about that, go right ahead and ask me.
Well, one thing you reminded me that I wanted to ask you when you were talking about singing and dancing, so it was a little while ago,
Okay.
but you just used a word that sparked it again. You want to come to our ecstatic dance Lansing concert in June?
Oh, I would certainly love to. Please send me the information.
Yeah, well, we're going to have one a month for 3 or 4 months outside, and then hopefully move it into the Fledge later on. So I'm going to put this in the links, but I'll send you another invitation because I would love to get your thoughts on this. And for anyone that doesn't know, think silent disco, and you can dance however you want, and nobody's going to make fun of you.
That's very good for me because I dance in I'm one of the most peculiar things to watch when I'm dancing. I'm certainly interesting. It's why I leave my dancing portions to my dancer friends. Shout out to Lana Hankinson and Rosetta Isnardi.
All right. So the next part is a part that I've changed today. So we're in a phase transition for a few days because I felt like I was starting to go through a checklist on the show. Mm-hmm. And it felt very uncomfortable that I was getting to that point. So I wanted to nip it in the bud. So I've combined a bunch of things: happiness, sadness, hope, and joy. What are your thoughts on these words and these things and how they interact with each other, and how you look at, I don't know, being an optimist or a pessimist, or, you know, there's a lot of duality in our language. And, you know, you've got me really conscious of that right now, which I'm very happy about because it wrecks the world. Not being in spectrums and continuums and thinking that way wrecks the world. So let's talk about, why are you a devil? Let's go there.
Okay, so I half joking, half serious because it's a crazy thing. So one of my favorite opera roles is Faust. I love singing. One of my favorite opera songs is the Salut de mes recherches de pure, where he is singing about his love for the Marguerite, or, you know, the love interest, and that was the name in the French opera. I believe it was Gretchen Spinerada, but I'll digress from that for a second. My brain just halted and just reset it. But basically, for those of you who are listening who don't know, Faust is basically the world's most intelligent man, but it's made a devil with Mephistopheles, one of the servants of the devil, or an aspect of the devil, depending on the lore. Mephistopheles preceded the story of Faust. The original story of Faustus was a little bit propagated in regards to the Christian history, whereas the German version of it and the subsequent time of the opera had a bit more gray area to it, which I preferred those versions. Faust wanted to know everything. He wanted to experience everything. I relate to him a lot, but I also relate to Mephistopheles and characters like him. So there was another story called Pan Twardowski, I believe. I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. A modern character version of it. You heard me make commentary on The Witcher earlier today. There's a character in The Witcher called Gonter Dim, whose name is an acronym for the word God. They make commentary on all the aspects of spirits. Spirits not necessarily meaning being good or bad. They reflect what people do at them, which is a commentary on the mirror, a commentary on the concept of I am, you know, being created in God's image if you're a monotheist, or the image of divinity if you're a polytheist. And I am... it's very interesting because I always found myself growing up, before I really started becoming conscious of these things, I always found myself relating to both the character that was signing the contract and the character that made it. And it was really interesting because if you look at the character's engagements with people outside of it, they were very kind to good people and very terrible to bad people. Some people mostly said, you know, that's just the devil tricks. He doesn't really mean that. This is what they're really after. but when you read more into the context and when you understand the cultural context of how these stories are written, you realize that no, it's a commentary on these people are literally treating you as you are treating them. These entities are literally treating you as you are treating them. They're showing you what they are, and they love you enough. And they're also willing to mess with you enough to help you either be transcended and transcend the negative aspects of the serpentine ego, or be destroyed by it. It's, you know, it's a constant commentary on the quote-unquote hero's journey, which exists for both male and female archetypes in different ways. Depending on which culture you go into has more or less of that. But growing up, I was always a mediator for a lot of people. It was probably because I grew up in a household that had some dissonance. I had to either learn how to communicate or I had to suffer and be just like it. I chose the former. And it makes life much better. And I've managed to help my family a lot. And, you know, and I helped a lot of friends doing that. But what was happening is that helping people sometimes isn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's very much whipping up a storm because they've become so stagnant that they need the wind to blow around their garbage and redisplace it. And that's scientific. Storms happen so we can balance the electromagnetic fields of the world, bring water where it is needed, and bring movement and changes in air pressure and the you know, the commentary on the world constantly spinning. If everything was literally equal, we would all die. That's not how nature works. Things have to be equitable in comparison and equal, but there is still a hierarchy, which is why we call it the animal kingdom. So there's good hierarchies and there are bad ones. You know, that's a whole other context. But people were always coming to me, and I realized I was able to see a lot of things about them. And I'm a practicing psychic, but psychic things aren't always all like, you know, you see in the movies. You know, it's fun. You're going to have our fun, and there are elements of that. But it's also very psychoanalytical, and it is very it's very interesting, you know, to see how these things have developed. That's a whole other story in and of itself. But I've been called as a devil or an angel or a lot of other things, which I don't want to get blasphemous. You know, I need people to understand the context of this. That when people came to me, I always do one of three things to them. I either make them think about something they've never thought about before, and it enriches them, and we, you know, enrich each other. And if I have equals, we grow together and we keep teaching each other, like the Kundalini, growing upward constantly. I either get a person who just kind of comes to me and I absolve them like a priest. So, you know, they come to me and they, you know, they got to watch it because, you know, sometimes it's good to be that priest and people go on about their lives. Other times you got to watch that you're not making a crutch out of me. That's the neutral aspect. And the negative aspect, which isn't necessarily bad, negative not necessarily meaning bad, positive not necessarily being good, just the way things modality-wise function. Otherwise, I become this devil, this adversary, because I'm reflecting. I always say if a person doesn't like me 9 times out of 10, there's something about themselves that they really hate that they're recognizing in me. And that's just also psychological projection. But the people who are most like themselves are going to make the people who are most not like themselves, who are rejecting themselves the most, hate them viciously, you know, and there's a whole other aspect of emotion there. So I have realized that I've either made people think of new things and it's helped them in a particular way, or I have made them question everything they've ever thought. And I've watched people's lives kind of come down like a tower just with little things. And I'm like, ooh, I got to watch that. Isn't my place to do it? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It depends if they ask you or not. That's why devils and angels and gods and things always, it's a contract. Do you give me permission? Is this what you really wish for? Oh, okay, bam. And that's what you get, what you ask for, not what you want. And if you don't get what you want, if you don't know what you ask for. So, you know, I do, you know, for those people who are willing to believe it, you know, it's, I do wish granting in magic. That is a thing. So crossroad entities, I've always been fascinated with crossroad entities. You have Mercury, you have Odin, you have Hecate, you have Papa Legba, the Haitian Loa. There are many to learn from. And I implore everyone to read everything, regardless of beliefs and background. Read everything, absorb everything, devour words, language. The word became flesh. And it's fascinating because there were times where I have friends. You could, if they ever come to Lansing, I'll introduce you to some of the friends that they will tell you it was a 50-50 where it's just like, okay, this realization almost destroyed them, but it did help them. It's that darkest before dawn, and it's a particular archetype. And I found myself always doing that to people constantly. And I'm like, ooh, okay, this is something, and I was relating to those characters, and I do mirror magic. You stare into the mirror long enough, and you see what you see. A lot of people are afraid of that because the whole Bloody Mary thing, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting thing. So I was always constantly doing that to people, and you make the joke in the Bible. The one who is the tempter is often referred to, at least in the New Testament, because there's not really a concept of the devil necessarily the way it is in Christianity and Judaism. That the tempter tempts you, it brings you away, but it's not the same type of tempting, So, and the thing that's really interesting is that, Jesus of Nazareth takes the sins of the world. The devil is to blame for all the sins of the world. People should be careful that they don't make them one and the same theoretically, and that's a warning. So it's a very interesting thing. I'm always out to help people, but people are going to take things how it is they want to take it. You can't control how people take you. All you can control is how you present these things, and that's the basis of all art and all commerce. And I love people. I'm fascinated with people and stories. I'm fascinated with what I can do to help as possible to bring blessings or justice where it is needed. And it's in my last name. Andreotti is a whole poetic last name. And also there were jokes because when my mom was pregnant with me, she wanted to name me Damien, which is a Latin name that means the harmless or gentle one. But it was also, it's that Omen movie, and she didn't want to give birth to the devil, and that was a pun on words, and also it starts with D, haha, devil, Damien. Yeah, I get that. But ironically, their first Halloween costume they made me was a little devil in an outfit. And for some reason, my grandfather was a photographer, but he took this one picture that was like a long photo that my mom hung up. It was the only long photo he ever took. And I asked her actually a couple years ago, Ma, why was that the only picture out of all the hundreds of pictures Pop took? He did that one. And it's just, so there's a lot of these weird motifs. Yeah. When I was a kid, I've had a couple of dreams where I've seen Jesus of Nazareth staring back at me in the mirror. That's been a constant motif in my dreams. I've experienced priests talk about how they're like, oh, I've never seen that or experienced that before, and they want that, and it's very interesting. But it's always been a very daunting experience, but always very lovely. I've experienced a few different types of gods from cultures, and sometimes they reveal themselves directly, sometimes it's indirect. It really kind of depends on what it is they want to do. There's so many things going on. It's much like music. The piano is just a paperweight if you don't play it. So you got to call, you got to ask, you got to do. So that's kind of why, long and short, why some people will call me a man at the crossroads, a mirror man, a devil, an angel, and a variety of other things. So I'm not saying that. So I want that abundantly clear. I'm not trying to smell my own farts here, friends. That's just what my life has been like. That is what my experience has been like. It's just this what it is. So it's funny.
Well, we got to hurry up a little bit because we're behind. Love the answer. Love it. You got me thinking about a bunch of stuff. Let's go back to that happiness, sadness, joy, and hope, and the relationship, and how they affect you and your view of the future, maybe.
Okay. So happiness and sadness are as the seasons, my dear friends. And I know some people would think that cliche, but shall I compare thee to a summer's day? There is truth to it, however, but the emotions are necessary to get us through this. As if we stay in some place too long, to quote you, staying in the extremes or staying in one end too long, that's a problem. Extremism is a problem. Getting married to one thing. If you stay defined for too long, you become as stone. There's a reason why the depictions of certain aspects of hell, for those of you who've seen the movie As Above, So Below, where people are frozen in walls, and there's halls of the blind and halls of the deaf and halls of, all of these things. And they're symbolic. They're not meant to discourage anything. Let me make that abundantly clear. I have blind and deaf friends, all right? There's different aspects to understanding the world, and that's also a spectrum in and of itself. I want that abundantly clear. But getting frozen, too rooted in something, that is that pride. That is that this is the only right way. This is the only right way, and everything else is wrong. Well, that's fascism, friends. So we have to watch out for that. So staying in one place too long, that's a concept of limbo-esque death. So we need to Happiness is in the same realm of words in Greco-Latin as the word blessed. In Latin is benedictus. Benedictus means happy, but you are to be made happy, be made vibrant, highest functioning, optimal. There are so many layers to these words. Greek and Latin were poetic languages. Unfortunately, there's poetic English and non-poetic English, and there's been a lot more of the latter and not enough of the former lately, and which we're hoping to reintroduce. Really listen to Morgan Madden. He's fantastic, and I love to debut some of my poetry as well. Happiness is something that reminds us that we should constantly be grateful, and we should share that as often as possible. Happiness is a wealth. It is a sunshine. There's a reason why the sun is created as gold. Sadness is as the rains and the storms, things moving, and then you have the turmoil and the anger, and things mix together because emotions are a spectrum. They blur together, much like music and sound. It's all that sound, color, it's all the same thing. And just resonates on different aspects of planes and understanding. Sadness is a tool to get us to understand how far we've come, what we can do to make ourselves better people, what we can do to help everything around us. It's also a way to realize that not everything lasts forever and we should cherish every moment. It makes us better understand how limited time really is. I want every second of every day. And where those come together is hope. If you did not have sadness, there would be no point in hope. And there would be no happiness either, because there would become that stagnance. So many people are vying for peace. So many people are vying for, I gotta be positive, I gotta be positive, I gotta be positive. Understand the words you're using, friends. There's a reason why they call it spellcraft. You're spelling a word, you're saying something. If you're positive constantly, and you're claiming you're positive constantly, and then you get hit by a truck, that's a negative aspect. That's a giant swing. That's a storm. That is nature stabilizing itself. You have to balance. You have to shift back and forth. That's Tai Chi. That's Qigong. That's Yin Yang. That is the seasons. Be as the seasons. That is how we are in tune with Earth. So hope is a thing to me that is where happiness and sadness, where love and fear, not hate. Hate is a side effect of fear. Where light and darkness, push, pull, yin yang, where it all comes together. Hope is something that is really real, but it's not as real as people think it is. We should not hope for things that are a passing fancy. We should hope for how it is we can make that hope stronger, I suppose, is a way I'll answer that question without being too long. I'd love to elaborate on that more at a different time.
I would love that too, because I'm really, when we started the Fledge, one of our missions is to help create opportunity to pursue happiness in an America where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not available to everybody, is not equal or equitable to everybody. And I constantly then struggle with the words and what are the better words and what are the better language. So I'm going to take you up on that one too. So in the, to save a little bit of time here, what did we forget to talk about? And are you emotional again? Let me get
a little bit.
All right.
Hope is a very interesting topic to me. I've witnessed things that are anecdotal,
There's an old Russian phrase that makes me really love the word, and hope is the last to die. So once that's gone, there's no hope. We forget to talk about anything, man?
Yes, let me, hold on. The phone's just being a little slow. What gives you hope? And then, what gives us, what you wanted to ask me, what gives me hope? And also you asked me to take everyone out with something. So whatever you want to do.
No. I was really, did we forget to promote any events or talk about anything coming up? I think we're okay.
Business-wise, yeah, I think so. We're talking about the TV show tonight. We are, if there's anything more y'all want to check out about me, you can find me on YouTube. Some recordings are old, some recordings are new. I'm trying to make a bunch of new recordings very soon. I'm very picky because of my voice blends really well more with organic instruments than it does with electronic ones. So for that particular reason, I'm really picky about what I put out. In my live performance is very different than my recorded performances. And that's also on purpose. I do that on purpose. So you have reason to want to come to both. At the end of the day, I am a businessman. 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 I am a business if you ever want to check out any of the other television shows I've been on Italian America, Long Island. I've been on Looking to Make a Difference with Gail King. I have been on News 12 Long Island. We actually had an Emmy Award-winning segment with Antoinette Biordi from News 12 Long Island. She's a dear friend, beautiful soul, one of the best reporters I've ever seen. She really is into what she does, and she has a very good, keen discernment. And we won an Emmy for our there was something called Beyond the Broomstick segment. So there's a bunch of things you can search up with me and Daimonikos Productions and everyone else. And if you want to learn more about those artists, you can certainly ask. And feel free to email me. Feel free to text me. For those of you who have my business card, like feel free to text the number. Obviously, be gentle. Yeah, we got a lot of great things coming up. So please stay tuned, stay informed, and stay neighborly. The one thing I love about this place is that there is community here. There is hope in that. I was really sad at home. There's not a lot of community because of what's going on economically right now, and it's sad. So let's really do this. We can really make this place the hub of the Renaissance, because it already is.
Nice. Is that what you wanted to take us out with? Or you got something else? Because that was really good.
I'll take you out with this. Friends, whatever your concept of the divine is, if that is humanism or if that's literally the divine in any particular way, whatever your background is, we're living in a day and age where things are very loud. We're going through that shows it's one of the biggest transitions we've ever had. So always remember, though, that if everything around you is loud, you're not hearing the sound of silence, little Simon and Garfunkel. Remember, this is one of my quotes. I'm writing books, and this was, I believe, channeled, and you'll see it in some of my promotional videos. Divinity is the loudest sound in the most deafening of silences. It is the aporia within paradox. It is the evdaimonia in apotheosis. It is twilight. It is the mathematical aspects and the symbolic aspects of the phi. My mathematician friend, you know what I'm talking about. So I wanted to finish with something that brought you and I together. We start that, and we'll come full circle. The phi is the full circle. Incidentally, it is the circle, which is the void, and the line, which is the existence and the mirror. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in coincidence. So, look, my dear friends, ask and ye shall ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find. Be bold enough to receive, because once the door's open, the spirits are kicking you through. There's no turning back.
Stephano, thank you so very, very much for coming on the show. I think we recorded the longest show we've done so far, which is great with me. Yeah, so we'll be talking soon, I'm sure. And everyone tune in tonight on ABC and at 7 o'clock, and check out all of the great artists that are creating this renaissance. I still am not going to be comfortable pronouncing it like you do. So every damn day, every day at 2 p.m., stay tuned, and we will see you later. And that's for your deaf friends out there, too. See y'all later. Bye-bye, Stephano.